Imagine an ecosystem that covers nearly 40% of the Earth's surface. One that harbors an incredible diversity of species and provides essential ecosystem services for the planet and for humanity. We are talking about grassland and open ecosystems such as the Pampas in South America, a unique but threatened ecosystem. We are going to explore why this biome is so important, the challenges it faces, and how collaboration between researchers and ranchers can help save it. The Pampas extend from South Brazil to Uruguay and Argentina. They are composed mainly of herbaceous and shrubby vegetation. And, depending on the region, trees may also happen. This vegetation structure is the result of thousands of years of coevolution with grazing herbivores. Before the arrival of humans, grazing megafauna played a key role in maintaining the vegetation, species richness, and ecosystem services, a role now largely taken by domestic livestock. Grassland plants have developed specific traits to coexist with herbivores. Some can quickly regrow after being grazed, while others have evolved protective adaptations. But perhaps most impressive is how these grasslands provide valuable services for all of us. Their conservation has direct implications for maintaining water sources, supporting pollination, protecting soils from erosion, regulating soil carbon balance, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, all contributing to global climate change mitigation efforts. In recent years, we have witnessed a growing neglect in the conservation of these environments due to the suppression of native vegetation. In the Brazilian portion of this large ecosystem, surveys shows that more than half of the regional grassland vegetation has already been converted to other land uses, primarily agricultural crops such as forestry, plantations, cultivated pastures, and row crops. This is connected to the inadequate grazing management, which has made livestock farming, the main activity in the remaining grassland areas, a low profit and less competitive endeavor, gradually giving way to other land uses. So, it is crucial to understand pasture management from an ecological perspective, seeking practices that ensure the sustainable use of biodiversity while also making livestock production in native vegetation areas more economically attractive. Establishing food production systems that do not degrade natural landscapes while maintaining viable populations of characteristic species and preserving other ecosystem services is the most effective way to address two of today's major environmental challenges: biodiversity loss and climate change. Understanding how biological communities respond to management practice and climate dynamics, and how these factors influence ecosystem services, helps define acceptable levels of human intervention within sustainable limits. Using an experimental approach, the Long-Term Ecological Research at the Brazilian Campos Sulinos project focuses on 4 key questions for the conservation and sustainable use of grasslands in southern Brazil. How are biological communities in grassland ecosystem structures, both taxonomically and functionally? How do these communities respond to grazing management and climate dynamics? How do these communities influence ecosystem processes and services? How can this knowledge be transformed into better management and conservation decisions for ranchers, environmental managers, and governance? In this video, we will focus on presenting one of the experimental sites of our ILTER project, the Pedra Furada site. Located in the municipality of Bagé, in the state of Rio Grande do Sul, this site is characterized by savanna-like vegetation with a predominance of herbaceous shrub layers forming a mosaic with forest patches. At this experimental site, 2 stocking methods will be evaluated: rotational and continuous grazing. Stocking methods are anthropogenic interventions that influence the spatial and temporal patterns of foraging behavior, which is innate to herbivores. Traditionally, in continuous grazing, animals have unrestricted and uninterrupted access to forage through the grazing period. In contrast, rotational grazing involves alternating periods of grazing and rest in smaller management units, aiming to reduce feeding selectivity by distributing the animals more evenly across space and time. These shifts in grazing regimes affect herbivore foraging behavior and, consequently, the structure of grassland vegetation, since both are codependent. In other words, grazing is influenced by vegetation characteristics while also altering them, the cause-effect relationship. The 56-hectare experimental area is divided into 3 blocks based on the proportion of tree cover. Each block contains 2 experimental units. Beef cattle, Bos taurus, are being used in the experiment. 2 grazing treatments were randomly assigned to each unit. Continuous grazing, where the animals are allowed to roam freely in the paddock, and rotational grazing, where the paddock is subdivided in 8, with grazing and resting periods determined by the temperature in the period. To assess the contrasting effects of the 2 grazing methods, the following variables are monitored at the experimental site: plant species composition, arthropod community composition, functional traits of species within these communities, and ecosystem processes such as primary productivity, biomass decomposition and soil biological activity, subsurface carbon stocks such as biomass and soil, stability of primary productivity, invasibility by exotic plants, and the resulting ecosystem services, livestock productivity, beef cattle production, biodiversity conservation, climate change mitigation and adaptation, stability of these ecosystem services, all within the context of real-world cattle ranching systems. The conservation of the Campos Sulinos is an urgent challenge, but also a great opportunity to align production with preservation. Research efforts like those developed through Brazilian ILTER Campos Sulinos project are essential for generating the knowledge needed to understand the ecological functioning of these ecosystems, enabling us to manage them in a smarter, more efficient and sustainable way. But science alone is not enough. Dialogue with farmers and technical professionals is indispensable. Furthermore, collaboration among researchers from different institutions and countries strengthens global conservation network, amplifying the impact of discoveries and proposed solutions.